Hi fans of high quality entertainment. I'm going to talk about panic attacks, David Bowie, and my music. First of all, panic attacks. I don't know where to start, but I've had them off and on since the 80s, and thankfully I don't have them very often. Sometimes there's gaps of years before I have them. For instance, I had quite a few little panic attacks about a week ago for a couple of days in a row. So probably like a dozen panic attacks that would last like 30 seconds or a minute. Very scary. If you've never had panic attacks, I hope you never do. And so in case you didn't see my post on my community or on Facebook, I would like to first of all reread what I wrote and then a private message I received from someone without naming their name or anything. I thankfully have not had any panic attacks in the last year or so. This was written about 3 or 4 days ago. However, the 2 days before were the worst episodes I have ever had. The worst thing about them is they are very intense and scary, and the good thing is they are usually over within a minute or less. I think I had over a dozen in 2 days. Not fun. I've had them off and on for years, but thankfully with gaps of a year or two. My last ones were 2 years ago. I've always found it very frustrating trying to tell others and my doctor what happens. It is almost like you are freaking out in your mind. You get a thought in your head and you really focus on that thought, and then you start to wonder if it is real, if it is a real thought or not, or a real situation. And your brain starts to panic. For me, I feel this rush of blood or panic to my head. I think the very first time this happened in the 80s, it happened at work, and a coworker said that my face went all white. So maybe the blood rushes away from my face. So I feel this rush of blood or panic to my head and start to sweat, all the while being frozen in fear. Once the attack is over, I usually have no idea what the thought was that was freaking me out. It's completely gone, but the fear remains for a bit. And looking up symptoms of panic attacks, this one below is the closest one to what I experienced. It's number 10, derealization. A panic attack may also propel an individual into a state of derealization. This entails dissociation from the external world. It is due to an alteration of perception, which makes everything seem unreal. The affected individual may withdraw into their own self and begin behaving as though other realities do not exist. That's freaking me out. Talking to them is unlikely to bring forth any satisfying response. This symptom may be confused with shock. And I certainly know I am not alone when it comes to mental illness. My mom had nervous breakdowns near the end of her life, which were just as scary to witness as the panic attacks I have now. I'm sure there are triggers for the panic attacks. And Molly's the one that mentioned this to me, because it was just after I'd finished the Beatles ranking, where I rank all of the Beatles songs and individual videos. And so that series was completely done, and that's kind of around the time I started having these panic attacks. And I am off work for 2 weeks due to shoulder and neck pains with no pay. But overall, I'm very happy and looking forward to being with Molly full-time in the near future. That's right. Easy, easy, okay? And I said, at some point soon I'm going to make a YouTube update video on my panic attacks, as I like to show others that we all have our difficulties in life to get through. And I know I'm kind of an online personality with, you know, Canadian Studmuffin, and I have people that say, you know, they really like me and really love, some hate me and really love me, and it means a lot to me. It really does. Lots of great online friends. And earlier in my life, I was, you know, the same. I had I think, a great sense of humor as a kid. I was kind of the class clown at some point, and then went to another school and became kind of a little shy and withdrawn. But for the most part, I just kept to myself. I loved music, and, you know, I didn't communicate because I didn't feel when I did, I would be heard. Although I will say my mom and dad were great parents. I love my mom and dad. And now, of course, with Molly, and she does too, we open up completely to each other, so that's good. And I have gone to a counselor about these panic attacks. I just went once, though, because after the session, it was like, I just didn't feel it was going to help me in any way. It would help me more just to talk to somebody I loved, like Molly, about anything. But I know early, you know, in my life, my first wife, Nancy, passed away from cancer at the age of 40. That was a big shock. It's probably still inside me is a big shock. My mom, like, having the nervous breakdowns, and one time finding her on the couch with her wrist slit. Yeah. And I was about, I don't know, 14 or so when I found her on the couch. So some of you might wonder, you know, I'm silly and try to make people laugh. It's like I'm giving. I'm a giving person, and I take a lot of abuse too online, but, you know, for the most part, like I always say, 95% of the feedback is always very nice and positive. But there's always the 5% of the arseholes out there on the internet that are going to attack anybody. Even me. And I'm not and get this off my chest, I'm not a perfect person. I can be a jerk. Just ask Molly. No. I don't know. I try and be a good person. Anyway, as I ramble on, and we still have to talk about David Bowie and my music. I bet you can't wait for that. But I received this message today from a Facebook friend who I used to work with, so I don't really know him that well. You know, it's like a lot of Facebook friends that you probably have that you kind of semi-know. And he would respond to some things that I would post, and it would be kind of annoying. Like, for instance, I posted a picture of me with some kind of food in a can of apple juice. And I hadn't had apple juice in like 2 years. And of course he goes on a little rant about how bad apple juice is for you. And another time he wrote to me, and he was saying that he read some article, and this guy was saying that Kraftwerk were more influential than the Beatles. And I just, maybe they are, I don't know, I'm just not going to respond to it. I just don't have the time to, you know, I love the Beatles, so I don't care. Go away. Not you. And I was just kind of getting the feeling like, this is almost like being at a counselor or a psychiatrist. Just talking, right, to my viewers. And I know some of you will respond in the comments below, and I read every comment, and some of what you say, I take to heart. So, this is what my former Facebook friend wrote to me, because I blocked him. I just had enough, you know, I just don't want to deal with it. Maybe I know he probably meant well, but it just annoyed me with what he wrote. And some of you might agree with him. You know, let me know if I'm in the wrong. I might be, but I don't think I am. I think you should talk to a trauma counselor or a psychiatrist I have thought about having myself assessed. I think you should. Neighbors moving in. A doctor can get you to a psychiatrist, but you do not need a doctor for that. Just saying, social media is the last place I would talk about panic attacks. Uh-oh. I'm using social media and I'm talking about panic attacks. Yeah, social media is the last place I would talk about panic attacks. Only your true friends give a fuck about that. Recurring panic attacks is serious shit. No shit. But I guess what really got to me was social media is the last place I would talk about panic attacks, which I totally disagree with, because especially at my age, I don't care. I will talk to my viewers about whatever I want to talk about, even some serious stuff. I've done videos in the past when I had my marriage breakup, and I know that, and about depression and all that, and I know I kind of did it just, you know, to help me and get it out of my system. But I also know that I had viewers, which surprisingly, those videos helped too. So I'm talking about panic attacks because I'm the Canadian Studmuffin, and I have mental issues sometimes. And, you know, you can laugh about it too. Even though it's such a serious thing, it really is, and it's scary. It's really scary. So if any of you have had panic attacks, I'm very sorry, and I'll get this guy to write to you. But so that's it for panic attacks. It's like life sometimes sucks. And I'll also say, you know, there's stuff that goes on in my life that none of my viewers know about and none ever will. You know, stresses and everything. And I'll just say that Molly, my girlfriend, in case you don't know Molly, she's kind of been through hell in some ways in the past year. And not to do with me, but she has. And I think she's become a really much stronger woman in the last year, and I'm really proud of her. So you people that love Molly and you see the good in her, she is an amazing woman, and thank you for supporting both of us. And that's all I'll say about that. I love you, Molly. And then just a couple of quick things. David Bowie. I try and stay away from negativity. You know, I don't. But I've read so much on David Bowie because I've become a huge fan of his. I've always liked him, but I've become a huge fan in the past year. And, you know, reading about, for instance, Tonight being one of his worst albums, and Day In, Day Out being pretty bad. And even this kind of way too commercial and kind of a sellout. And this one, Hours, being boring. Now, I haven't actually listened to this enough yet, but I've heard a bit of it on Spotify, and I like it. I don't think it will ever be my favorite David Bowie album, but it's still good. This is, yes, it's more commercial, but it's really good. I really enjoy it. And I'd always read that, I got the wrong album. I've always read, for this one, Tonight, which is considered one of his worst albums, that God Only Knows, his version of the Beach Boys is, you know, like god-awful. And I've even read, even recently, that people agree. But I don't. I think it's a gorgeous song, and his vocals on it are amazing. So I was really impressed, because I was, you know, the first time hearing it, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be bad. And it wasn't. It was great. Loving the Alien, one of his best vocals. And the rest of the album, the couple of times I've listened to it, the remastered version, I enjoyed it. it's not bad at all. It's good. And I also believe I listened to this all the way through and I enjoyed it, day in, day out. Although back in the day, day in, day out, the song and the video, I hate it, but now I don't. And now for the most important part, where most of my viewers have gone by now. My music. Back in the late 90s, up to about 2008, 2009, I made music at home, mainly with music loops, and I would post these songs on this site called Acid Planet. And sometimes I would work with real musicians, like real guitarists or people that knew what they were doing. And through the years, I've amassed hundreds of songs, and a couple of them are really good. And as some of you know, I've already released four albums. And the fifth one is coming out at some point in the next week or so. It's a double album. But anyway, I just want to say that, and I also posted, I'm kind of rambling here. I posted in my community last night, my next album will be a double. And then I had 2 votes, yes, with exclamation marks, and God no with exclamation marks. Because I can, I understand some people hate my music, and that's okay. But some people actually seem to like it. And 71% of you put yes. And 29% said God no. So out of the 329 votes, 233 people said yes. I'm not saying that 233 people like my music, but some of you in there must at least find it entertaining, and I really appreciate it, because some of the music, because I kind of buried it for years, and just, in the last little while I've been listening to it again, and some of it, it's like production-wise and all that, and me not having really any talent except for lyrics. Thank you. And I can't sing, but I was able to, put together, I think, kind of entertaining, a variety of music, some of it weird, which I like, kind of a Frank Zappa, Mother's Invention kind of weirdness to it. And so anybody that actually listens and enjoys it, I just thank you, because that was a big part of my life. And I think back in the day, I was a really, really creative person. And maybe not so much now, because I haven't written poetry or anything for years, but I think I could still do it again if I have the time. But that's it. So panic attacks, comment below. And what do you think about what my former friend said about social media? David Bowie, comment below about it. My music. Comment below about it. And yeah, that's it. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to me on social media about panic attacks.